Hello YouTube. Sorry I've been gone for a while. I haven't been feeling well. A little bit under the weather and been kind of busy, so I haven't had a chance to make a video in a couple weeks. But anyway, all things aside, tonight I'm just going to talk about my feelings, kind of about the way people with mental illness are treated and things that I've experienced. This might be a little bit redundant. It's a lot of stuff that I've previously mentioned in some of my other videos, but I want to kind of tie it all together here in one video on the subject in particular. It's kind of, let me start with my story. Initially I have a lot of back and leg problems, and I've had 6 major back surgeries. I have one foot that doesn't work. They're probably going to have to cut off sometime in the next 5 years. And basically that was initially why I went on disability, because my back was too bad that I couldn't, I have a problem. I can't sit for more than like 35 minutes. I have to lay down for a couple hours. I have problems standing, walking, bending, twisting, anything like that. I have a failed fusion that, and a lot of stenosis and arthritis and bad discs that are still there and stuff. Basically the neurosurgeons I've seen said there's not really anything else they can do for me other than try to make me comfortable, and I won't take narcotics, because I'm a recovering addict. So I basically just white knuckle it and deal with it. Fortunately it's been pretty good. Naloxone actually I take, which is an NSAID, like naproxen or Motrin or one of those. But naloxone has been like a godsend for me because it's not narcotic. It can be a little bit rough on your stomach, but I usually take it with food and a glass of milk, and it doesn't irritate my stomach at all. I take that every day, and that really helps my back a lot, along with my ankle too. Which is basically fused from arthritis. I dislocated my foot years ago, and again it never heals right. And blah blah blah. But anyway, I find it kind of ironic that when I was on disability for physical issues, I was constantly having to prove that I had these physical issues. I was Social Security disability was sending me like every month to a different doctor that they had to get an MRI, to get a CAT scan, to get this scan, a bone density scan, and everything else. I've probably had 100 MRIs in my lifetime. I'd probably glow in the dark. If I was to turn off the lights, you'd probably still be able to see me. But, it was a constant battle, and then like once a year I would have to go for a, what they called, I forget the exact wording, but basically where they would send me to a doctor, one of their doctors, and he would reevaluate me and make sure that I was still disabled, which I found kind of ironic. You'd think somebody who's got orthopedic problems like I do, they would send me to an orthopedic doctor. And actually, the 2 times that I had to go, both times I went to a doctor who's an allergist. Now, exactly how an allergist can determine whether someone is disabled due to an orthopedic issue or not is kind of beyond me. It's kind of that's like when I went when I was in the hearing process of applying for Social Security, and I got turned down like everyone does. They sent me to one of their doctors when I guess when I was my 3rd time, when I was getting ready for my court hearing, and basically this doctor had me sit on the edge of a exam table and put my arms out to my side and touch my nose like a DUI sobriety check, and that was it. Told me to leave, and in his report he said I had no disabilities to speak of. So I guess these people, they get paid to say you're not disabled, and so that's the way it works. But anyway, when I did have my hearing, fortunately my judge looked at my records and she said she was going to go with what my orthopedics had said and not what their doctor said, because she felt my doctors knew me better than their doctor, which is true. You're not going to want guys who cut it into me 6 times. They know my history, and they know what it looks like from the inside. So, but anyway, I find it again kind of ironic that how there was always so much contact and so much verification of you have to prove that you're disabled, prove that you're sick, prove that you can't function, you can't do this and that, everything else. And then came my psychotic break when I was hospitalized. And I had already been seeing a psychologist prior to this for a couple months, and I was in the hospital for an extended period of time, against my will at first, and then I agreed to it after a couple weeks. I realized that was probably where I needed to be. So anyway, we went through all that, got out, went to see the psychiatrist, got the diagnosis from the psychiatrist, and everything else, and then the Social Security disability and my long-term disability provider, like every 6 months, would send me a package that I would have to have my doctors fill out. And my pain management doctor hated doing it. It was like pulling teeth to get him to do it. And he would finally do it. In the end, didn't do it right, so I would, everything was proper. And when I got the one and gave it to my my psychiatrist to fill out, which was Dr. Correa at the time, he filled it out, sent it back, and Social Security contacted me and said, well, now you're seeing a psychiatrist, you've been diagnosed with various mental illnesses. They're like, okay, we just want to let you know that we got everything from your new doctor. And the funny thing is I haven't heard anything from them since, and that was about 3 or 4 years ago. It's kind of when you're physically hurt, nobody believes you, but once you have a mental illness, they just leave you alone. It's like, don't mess with this guy, he's crazy, he'll open fire in a public place, something like that, all the stereotypical stuff. And it's like kind of the same thing with the treatments for mental illness. I go through a lot of therapy. I see a psychologist every other week. I go to a group for people with schizospectrum illnesses every other Wednesday, the second Wednesday and the fourth Wednesday of every month. I see my psychiatrist every other week. And, it's a good program. It works for me. It's pretty extensive. I'm lucky that my insurance, and that I have the money to do this. A lot of people couldn't afford to do what I do, but, fortunately I'm fairly well off, and, I'm able to get adequate medical attention. But, there are resources out there for people who can't afford it. Don't give up, whatever you do. Don't suffer and give up. Look around, ask around, call social services and stuff like that, and they can give you, maybe some programs in your areas. A lot of hospitals and things like that have support groups that don't cost anything with, either, PhD students or, people that are training to be therapists that are just about there, and overseen by therapists, or, like I said, PhD students that are working on their dissertations and stuff like that, which are really good resources, and they're very often free, especially if you have a university near you. I'm lucky we live, I'm from Connecticut, so, I live close to Yale and also UConn, both of which are teaching hospitals, and they have a lot of great resources for, they do a lot of studies and things like that, so you can usually, if you look hard enough and you're determined enough, you can usually find something that, you can help you out, find something that can get you some support or at least point you in the right direction. Also, fortunately, one thing I've also noticed is psych meds. You would think something that alters the chemistry of your brain and things like that would be a very expensive drug, but most psych drugs are not all that expensive. Unfortunately, my insurance doesn't cover 3 of the medications that I'm on, so I have to pay full book price for them. But for a month's supply, it's like $48, for each of them, which, it's still $120. I can still see how, if you're on a limited income, that could be quite a bit, but for me, it's feasible for me to pay that every month to get my medication. But getting back to the whole thing, I'm getting a little bit off track here. What I'm going to talk about is, all the treatments and, things they do when you have mental illness, like when you have to go in the hospital. What do? They zonk you full of benzodiazepines and antipsychotics, basically turn you comatose, knock you out, and then they expect you to go to these focus groups and learning groups and therapy groups and actually participate and take something away from it, when, to be honest with you, you don't even know where the hell you are half the time. You're doing the shuffle, the drool, everything, because a lot of times, too, if you're, like when I was hospitalized, Atypical antipsychotics weren't working on me. They gave me everything. They tried Risperdal, they tried Zyprexa, they tried Seroquel, and large doses, injections, pills, patches, you name it, and nothing was working. So they went and tried clozapine, which is an old school antipsychotic, back like clozapine, Thorazine, haloperidol. Excuse me, from that era, back from the 50s and the 60s. And the side effects of those are a lot harsher. Atypical antipsychotics the side effects aren't bad at all compared to, clozapine, Thorazine, and haloperidol. And haloperidol is number one, probably the worst as far as side effects go. And I'm not sure about clozapine. I don't really remember if I had any side effects or not, because I don't remember a lot of the time when I was in there, because they had me so doped up. And I think a lot of it has to do too with my size. I think I get treated a little bit differently when I do have to go to the hospital and things like that, especially when I was basically full-blown psychotic, off the wall nuts, because I'm a big guy, and if I start to go off the reservation, you've got me in a ward with 3 nurses that are 5'5" and weigh 120 pounds. They're not going to stop me from doing anything. Even a lot of hospital security guards, you know what I mean? I'm twice the size of them. What are you going to do to me? Which is kind of scary. Fortunately, I've never been to the point where I've gotten violent. I get a little uncooperative sometimes, but it's mostly verbally. I don't, I'll pull away, but I won't swing or grab or anything like that yet. At least I never have up to this point. I'm not a very aggressive person for the most part. I'm never really have been. I'm kind of a mellow, take it as it comes, go with the flow kind of guy. But anyway, again, these treatments, for mental illness, and it's the same thing with like my psychiatrist. When I go, I go every other week, and when I'm starting to get manic, or if I'm feeling hypomanic, or if I'm starting to hallucinate or things like that, or get, disorganized and, start having trouble with reality and things like that, what do? They give you more antipsychotics and more benzodiazepines, again, to knock you out. If you're crazy, well, we'll just make you sleep 22 hours a day, and then you can't hurt yourself or anybody else. Which I understand that mental illness, there's a big mystery to it, and it's not incurable. There's a lot of people don't know about it. There's a lot of differing opinions on it and how to treat it and things like that. But it's kind of it kind of, if I can borrow from Peter Griffin, it kind of grinds my gears sometimes that the solution to everything is sedation. There's no like I said, I go through a lot of, talk therapy between my psychologist and my group, and, that helps. But, there's got to be a better way, than just to sedate the life out of people, and just basically make you like The Walking Dead. That's what go to a long-term psych ward. There's not many of them left around anymore. Like there's probably one in each state. Maybe bigger states like Connecticut or like California or Florida, or New York might have a couple, but like here in Connecticut, there's basically one. It's Connecticut Valley Hospital. It's where they keep all the criminally insane people and everybody else. But you go to one of these wards and you look, and it's like an episode of The Walking Dead, man. I mean, everybody's just shuffling around and sitting or rocking, and nobody knows what's going on or where they are, and then they send you to these therapy groups with these, psychologists and psychiatrists and social workers, and, it's like they try to get you to participate, but I mean, you're just beyond it, bad enough you're having a psychotic episode, but then they just turn you into a zombie, a dope zombie, and then they expect you to be able to function and be, coherent and complete thoughts and things like that when you can't. It's hard enough just to swallow and breathe, And, it's kind of like it snowballs because, they're not going to let you go home until you're better. But yet they keep you so doped up, they can't tell if you're better or worse because you're just a friggin', like I said, you're like the Walking Dead, you're like a walker, man. And, I think that's a shame, it's too bad, that they do that, Now these days, you have to be in a pretty bad way to end up in a place like that, for the most part. Usually now, if you're, you'll go to your normal hospital, and, that has a psych ward, and, most of them have a psychiatric unit as well if they have an emergency psychiatric ward, and they'll keep you there for up to a week, maybe 10 days, and usually, that they dismiss you after that, whether you're still crazy or not, because most insurances won't pay for long-term care. There's mental illness. It's kind of, like I said, you have to fight tooth and nail to get things covered sometimes. And unfortunately, when I was in the hospital for that extended period of time, my insurance didn't cover it. Fortunately, my parents paid for it. Like I said, I'm lucky. I come from a family of means. We're not billionaires, but we live comfortably, and thank God for that. Otherwise, who knows what could have happened. I'm sure if I didn't go into that controlled atmosphere, I would have ended up on the streets, or maybe who knows what I could have done, or in jail or something like that. It's scary, but anyway, this video is getting kind of long, so I'm going to cut it off here. Like I said, basically, if you're feeling, if you're suffering from symptoms of mental illness, depression, anything like that, seek help. Please seek help. Don't suffer alone. Even if it's on the internet, through support groups on the internet, they can be invaluable, even though you don't have the personal face-to-face relationship. Sometimes it's even easier to talk with people through a computer because you can kind of let down your boundaries, or let down your walls, and be a little bit more open sometimes because there's not that personal intimacy. It's kind of, you're like, it's almost like confession, with a priest. No one can see you. Nobody, people get to know you for who you are, not they might judge you, but not so much, people judge me when they see me because I'm covered in tattoos, and, I look like, I dress like a hobo half the time, and, or not really a hobo, but, all computer hacker shirts and this, that, and everything else, and, but like I said, don't suffer alone, and don't ever give up. Always keep fighting. Life is worth it. You're worth it. Again, if you see the video, any questions or anything you might want to hear me talk about, leave it in the comments. Please keep the comments constructive. Nobody likes a jerk. Please, if you find this interesting, like and subscribe to the channel. Now that I'm back on my feet again, I was pretty sick. I had a bad upper respiratory infection, so it was bad enough that I've quit smoking. That's how bad it was. I've actually decided to try to quit smoking. So like, subscribe if you like the channel. Hopefully there'll be a lot more to come. Also, you can check me out on Twitch TV at www.twitch.tv/Trug72. I live stream a lot of games that I play. Again, I'm by no means a pro gamer, but I have fun, and hopefully, we can get the channel to take off, and, with the YouTube channels and the Twitch channel, we can get a little community going. Hopefully, as things pick up, if my Twitch channel does become more popular and I do get more viewers, remember, I'm a rich guy, so I can do a lot of nice giveaways. Hopefully, let's help me get that button so we can give him more stuff away. I'm not looking to make money off it. I'm looking to reinvest anything that I do make back into the channel. So anyway, gosh, we're at 19 minutes, so boy. Okay, well, anyway, that's all for now. Again, any questions, comments, please put them up there. I'd love to hear from you. And anyway, I will talk to you soon, YouTube. Goodbye. Shrug out.